Have you ever stopped and thought, whoa, where did that come from? When a fantasy pops into your head that's, well, way more wild than anything you'd actually do in real life? It's something pretty much everyone experiences, but we don't really talk about it. So today, let's pull back the curtain on why this happened. So that's the big question, right? Why is your imagination so much more extreme than your reality? Why does our mind cook up these super intense, exaggerated, sometimes even taboo scenarios that seem worlds away from our actual relationships? Well, the answer is pretty incredible, and it tells us a lot about how our brains are fundamentally wired for excitement. All right, so the first piece of this puzzle is figuring out where these fantasies even happen. Think about it like this. Your mind creates this special, totally consequence-free zone. It's basically a safe playground for your imagination to just go nuts, a place where the normal rules of the world simply don't apply. And you can really see the difference here. I mean, in real life, we're constantly thinking about things, right? Social norms, our partner's feelings, our own moral boundaries, physical safety, keeping our relationships stable. But in the world of fantasy, poof, all of that just disappears. It's a space with absolutely zero consequences. This brings us to a really key idea, the psychological simulator. Your brain is smart. It treats fantasy like a computer simulation, not, a blueprint for action. It knows the difference. This is a place to explore all the what-ifs without any of the risk, which allows for a kind of creativity that reality just can't offer. So what kind of stuff are we cooking up inside this simulator? Well, you see a lot of common themes, really intense power dynamics, like dominance and submission, unrealistic physical traits, totally exaggerated scenarios, and partners who are just, idealized to perfection. And it makes sense. These things are so common because there are zero consequences for playing them out in your head. Okay, so we get it. We have this safe mental playground, but that leads to the next big question. Why does the brain choose to run such extreme programs in there? And this brings us to our second big idea. Our brain is literally engineering peak excitement. See, your brain is trying to solve a very specific problem. It's called habituation. It's a fancy term for something we all know. When you get used to something, it gets a little less exciting. And look, in long-term relationships, familiarity is amazing, but it can also, lower the intensity over time. Our brain, which is always looking for something new and exciting, has a pretty clever workaround. And what's that workaround? It's simple, really. Intensity. To fight back against that feeling of familiarity, the brain doesn't bother with realism in our fantasies. No, it's going for a powerful psychological punch. It basically just cranks the volume all the way up to 11. So how does it actually do that? Well, it's almost like there's a formula. Step 1, exaggerate traits. You take a single quality and you amplify it to the extreme. Step 2, dramatize the scenarios. You make them theatrical, bigger than life. And step 3, amplify the dynamics. You intensify the power differences, or you make the emotional stakes feel sky high. And this quote really nails it. Think about it. A real partner is complex, right? They're a whole person with good days, bad days, strengths, flaws, the whole deal. But a fantasy figure, they can be super simple. They can just be the perfect, pure essence of a single exciting trait, whether that's power or danger or total devotion. And it's amplified to the absolute maximum. All right, let's bring this all home. This is where we need to draw a really clear line in the sand between what a fantasy is for and what a real relationship needs, because they are two completely different things built to do two completely different jobs. And this chart just lays it all out plain and simple. A real partner, that requires actual interaction, trust, communication. You need harmony on so many levels. A fantasy object, it just needs to hit that one button for you. It's stimulus. One is built for a long-term, real-world relationship. The other is designed for a quick hit of excitement. And this brings us to what might be the single most important takeaway of this whole thing. Ready? Fantasy does not equal real desire, and it definitely does not equal real action. Let me say that again. Fantasy is not a map of what you actually want, and it is not a plan for what you're going to do. They serve two totally different purposes in our minds. And hey, if you're sitting there thinking, wow, my imagination is really out there, you're not alone, not even close. Multiple studies have found that over 95% of people have fantasies that are way more extreme than anything they'd ever actually do. So this gap between what we imagine and what we want, it's not a bug, it's a feature of how we're wired.
So, at the end of the day, it all comes down to this. Those wild fantasies aren't some secret code that reveals what you really want in life. They're just your brain's most efficient, most effective way of creating a powerful jolt of excitement in a completely safe space. So, I'll leave you with a final thought. Now that you know your mind has this incredible built in simulator, it doesn't just explain fantasies, right? What else can this teach you about your brain's constant, creative, and frankly, fascinating search for stimulation in all areas of your life? Something to think about.